At the workshop we did yesterday, I thought, and again, I'm always coming in as a student, but also as a teacher, appreciating the way something's being taught and learned, and what's effective. And I know in our teacher trainings, I've done a lot of teacher trainings where we do dyads, where people break off and you practice, you teach that person and they teach you back, and there's something about that interaction that's a very powerful way to learn. And the dyads that we did in your workshop, I thought were so important for this integration that you're talking about. A lot of retreats at the end will have a talking circle at the end, and the ideas that we're making the transition from a silent practice to speaking in the world, but it's not an active exercise, it's people expressing stuff, and so it's kind of kind of putting a foot in the water going out. But what was so powerful, and he had 5 questions that we ask each other, but we all the conversation, you're sitting across someone who just did this workshop all day, and you're coming from this place, so you're having to, and I remember when I first had to leave retreat, say to do an audition, and I'd be like, that brain didn't function. I was going, oh, they said that, I feel my sensation, and I was like a little slow, and I couldn't, I had to learn to kind of ride a bike again. But what was so, I'm impressed by these exercises. We're sitting in here and we have to ask the questions, and we have to do it 3 times, like go through 5 questions 3 times, and you're like, 5 questions 3 times, and you go through and you ask these questions, and we're both sitting here in this place, and it doesn't matter what is said. It's about literally someone asking, and and the questions are about you tuning into your experience and reporting it
to this. Once we've learned how to look, so it's kind of inquiry rather than questions for your mind. So you get the question like, where is the hearer located? And then you have to unhook awareness from understanding the thought, and then look back, where is the hearer? And you keep looking through your mind until you discover the non-centered ego awareness, and then you speak from there about whatever you find.
And you're doing that sitting across from someone, so you get that social intimacy, and that was the word I had for it. It's very intimate. You're just sitting across. Most people may or may not have done these dyads. So you're going into your own experience, but you're here in a relational way. And if you just heard what he said, you're having to describe something that isn't describable.
That's right.
You're going, it's free. It's like when he just asked me when to go to heart, what are the words? Good. I got
very good.
You're like your friend. That's good. Okay, good. So, and then you go through that series, and then by the time you've done it the 3rd time, there's you relax into the intimacy with the other person. Words start to come, and a journey of like where it is may shift and change, and there's no attachment to it. So you really do learn a rewiring of an integrating this while you speak it, while you're holding an intimate connection with somebody else. And I was just very impressed with, I thought people could walk out the door and not go, oh, that was good, all right, let me leave that and now go back to, that I really felt people could walk out the door and into their life with it. And that was just from a few hours.
Yes, that's right. And so the whole style, as we're saying, is to, do a workshop or a play shop, or rather or rather than a retreat, calling it a return. So you're not retreating from, you don't have to go out into a physically silent place, though that's, a nice thing to do once in a while. But in this training, you find the silence that's already here and the stillness no matter where you are. So just find it now, then you can find it anywhere. And once you find it, you realize it's not only silence, but it's silence that includes sound, it's non-dual silence, it's stillness that includes movement, and it's silence and space that's awake and that's also alive and embodied and dancing as energy and interconnected with everyone and everything. So that field of the unity, the awake consciousness, that's just shifted from it being an experience to this nature of mind being the experiencer, and that everything being both one and many and nothing and everything is not a philosophical or poetic nice thing to hear, that this is what other people are saying who are just learning. So it's really learning how to look or shift or tune in. You can use that, so you can surrender or let go, but not only let go, but then find or hand off the baton to that which is already awake, and then being that which is showing up as your full humanity. So you're not transcending, you're transcending and including, and then feeling like the goal is really living a full human life, not escaping.
Yeah.
Right?
Living into and through your life. It's always available.
That's right.
So then, I think that was well said. I don't think I have to go more into that. So I just want to personally now ask you a question. So you have a psychology practice, right?
I have. I don't now. I'm doing more
now because of his book.
No.
Because of his book, he's really just traveling around doing this more of the time. Is that?
I'm doing this, these kind of trainings, and I have individual sessions with people, but now they're around fine-tuning embodied awakening.
Because, what I was going to ask was if you had a psychology practice, which you have had over the years, how this has affected your work with that.
Yes.
Because how many people go to a psychologist and they're talking about this? That's not right. Usually, it's usually how did that make you feel, right. And it was your
or
mother,
your
or your father.
History.
Yeah.
So the personal history is still part of the fullness of your humanity, but this awake awareness has been referred to as the ultimate medicine. So did
it shift your whole practice, because you've been developing this for years. This didn't just happen when the book came out. The book was a result of your years of doing this. So you had a psychology practice as you were working on this.
Yes, I kind of did a joint degree with spirituality and psychology.
Oh.
And actually went off on a fellowship to Sri Lanka, India, and Nepal first, so that I had I came back and then do the training.
That connection.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And so early on was doing mindfulness-based psychotherapy, but then it developed into more awareness-based psychotherapy, and then more awakening-based.
So it was always integrated in
your always practice. Integrated somewhat, but my own development, as many of us, started with more meditation-oriented, and then as I developed these kind of syntheses or these, more direct glimpse practices, I started to realize, okay, well, let's introduce people into this awareness-based true nature, this kind of bigger sense of self, and then have that come and basically love up or
love up
the trauma and the
sounded like a hippie.
Kind of love, compassionately relate or embrace the traumatic parts or the shadow parts or the emotions that couldn't be tolerated by the ego or the old, or liberate the repressed contents that are too much for a small sense of self. So in some ways, you can really only grow up to a certain level, and then you have to wake up and what I call wake up, and then wake in, and then wake out to life. So 3 levels of awakening in order to continue to grow up or live a full human life. That even, those people who I've dealt with in psychotherapy and in life who have literally the most developed egos, the most successful human beings, who have all their ducks in a row, who are successful and have family lives and they're physically well, and they're come to me and say, is that all there is? I'm miserable. Because they have perpetual dissatisfaction because they're living from this yes but
critical mind
that can function
perfectionist
and learn to control and some, most of us don't do that well, but some people who, even those who do it well and have lived the dream, are when they relax for one moment are miserable, because they've actually developed the smarter you are, the more difficult it becomes.
The more complex you've developed.
The more complex and anxious you are, because your mind is saying, yeah, but what about this?
Really intricate system you've developed to function
at
that level. And I'm gonna. I can understand that. I relate to that. I am a card-carrying member of that group. Do you train psychologists? Do you do workshops for? Because I think that is a very powerful thing that the whole psychology profession just really. And I know there's more mindfulness based. I know a woman in Cambridge who runs a mindfulness psychology group. But there is more mindfulness coming into psychology. But you're bringing in another dimension. And
I was doing it on my own and had kind of developed my own kind of awakening based therapy, but then
awakening-based therapy. Love it. There's another title there. All right, go ahead.
But then I met about 5 years ago and was introduced to a type of therapy from a therapist called IFS therapy, Internal Family Systems is the name of it, but it's not necessarily your family inside. But Dick Schwartz had developed the system, which basically was my system except backwards. In other words, he would introduce you immediately to the parts of yourself that were suffering, and then have you step back to realize, to ask, are you aware of that part? Is that part aware of you? How do you feel toward that part? And the you started to become, he found, like what he called grounded being or true self. All of a sudden, all the parts that you usually identified with would be seen, but it wasn't even from a mindful witness. It literally was more what he called true nature. And then he really did a fine job of delineating the types of parts and their relationships of, hidden parts or shadow parts or exiled or child parts, hurt parts, and then protectors, and then managers, and then firefighters that act out.
Firefighters, managers, this is great.
So it's a really intricate
it's really
system.
Interesting.
That's similar to some other systems. But the unique thing was the self, but he hadn't in any detail developed what the self was. He would just trust that you'd go there.
Right.
And so then I presented at this conference just this last year, and he sat in the back and went, let's go to lunch.
That's the missing ingredient.
And now we're going to do
You're going to work together.
We're going to work together. We're going to do a retreat in Italy.
Perfect. Well, there. Are you a psychologist? You would like to go to Italy? Perfect, because as you teach this and help everyone, and so people on a spiritual path will come and drink the water and learn or whatever. But once you can kind of help the people who are helping people,
that's right.
That's got such potential there, and you're coming in on not just the people who are helping people, because you're helping meditation teachers help people, but coming in that the whole psychology modality, and because that's so established, and there's an incredible potential there. So I'm very excited about that. So that conference will be the first time you guys...
we're going to do a retreat together in the spring.
Have you like gotten together and written stuff out, or you just
no? We'll probably end up just
doing it on the fly and work it out.
Yeah, but we'll work it out, and he has a part of the piece of the pie, and I have another piece, we'll kind of do a little Mutt and Jeff kind of back and forth.
Yeah, right. I call it the car guys. You know, I love the car guys. You guys are the car guys. I love the car. I used to say Rick Hansen and Richard Mendius when I heard them on the thing, and I talked to Rick Hansen. I went, "You're the car guys of the brain," and he went, "Okay, that's good." I don't know if he knew what I was talking about.
But the psychology piece is important for everyone, because otherwise, many meditators end up in the spiritual bypass.
Yeah.
So they bypass. They think. And especially,
I don't have to do this other work.
There's either, like the extreme forms are the people who are real strong meditators who actually repress the contents of their minds. And you can do this with a very strong, especially concentration practice, or even fine noting and observing, where you almost deconstruct and then you think, well, I have no problems, but then you end up saying, and yet, what kind of tea would you like? All teas are the same. There's no need for a choice of tea, but tea will arrive and I will drink it. If there's an eye to drink it, drinking will happen. So there's a kind of, and as if that's the goal.
Right.
Or
to not feel. Like people will say, I want to get to where
beyond
I don't
emotion.
Feel.
Right.
Yeah, and I'd say, well, no, you want to feel fully. You want to be informed by your emotions and have them direct you, and not get down there and distort your perception of behavior in some way.
Yeah.
Or get where you're numbed out or something like that.
Yeah, so, and then the other group, so that's kind of the numbed out, repressed emotion type. And then the other one that is often the eddy, or the kind of cul-de-sac people get caught in, is stepping out of the mind into pure awareness and remaining as no self, or witnessing self. So that stage, there's a lot of people in that from certain traditions that you can observe. You're out of your suffering body, but you're also out of your humanity. And you get caught, and it gets very dry and very spacey and loses the juice. And unless they come back and include the body and become more open-hearted, they've kind of, sometimes I say it's like they were driving from the East Coast to the West Coast, and they got to the Grand Canyon and they just set up camp there. But it's the desert and the water's way down
there.
It's beautiful.
It's great. Look at the space.
Look at the space.
Look at that space. My God, it's so big. Right.
There's not a lot of people. There's a few mules there.
Right. I don't talk to people, but great space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So those are kind of some of the traps and detours that are possible. So this, like we were saying, as the metaphor was, both of us kind of said, you start to feel like a kid on the first day of your summer vacation.
Yeah.
That's the feeling. Like you want to be like curious and, this is great. I don't have that suffering judge in my head, and yet I'm in my body and I respect other people. I'm not, spiritually bypassing in an adolescent acting out like there's no rules, it's all play, so I can just, do what I want with people, and act out in that kind of guru
get in trouble
way.
In that way. Yeah.
So this is like, no, everyone's me. So of course I'm going to treat them with respect.
Right. And that's what I also, one thing I'm drawn to here, because I do like that. I think it should all be fascinating and fun.
Yeah.
And the whole, I know I'm watching my breath for the 10th hour, and, and I'm like, slit my wrist now. Although there's value there, I'm not dissing that as a path, but I do think that our sensory experience is fascinating. I do think that this seeing the sensory experience from another perspective.
Right.
I just find it. It's just like fascinating, exploring, childlike fun. Like it's a ride. There's that freedom, but it's also you're absorbing information. So it's not without wisdom. Your sense of self is larger, wiser, but still cool.
Fully human.
Yeah,
right.
It's cool, and that connection. And I do like how you emphasize, and I've probably said this now 5 times, but you don't say, okay, we're going to do this now. Next week we'll take it into the heart. Now next week we'll go out to. You literally right there. You'll stand up in front of everyone and you'll say, okay, we're going to do this. We're doing the mind now. Bring it down to the heart. Okay, now go out there. Now come in. Now you're going in and out. No.
So basically, I mean, in there's many systems that talk about dimensions of consciousness that are primary and most relevant for awakening and stabilizing awakening. And I think even I quote in my book that Ken Wilber, who studied like everything in the world and has maps of the whole thing, says
good maps.
If you look at wisdom traditions, you will see that they have 4 to 5 levels of consciousness that are primary. So what I do is I literally, and I'll do it now with my hands.
Do it. His hands. This is my favorite part.
I literally take people from the first level of consciousness, which is called everyday mind or ego consciousness, and then you either can step up into subtle mind, which is mindful witness, or drop down into subtle body, which is kind of where yoga consciousness and chanting and mantra and inner body bliss is feeling. And then you step out into the third level, which is pure awareness. And then the key is that awareness becomes aware of awareness. And that is without thought and out of your senses, that awareness is actually awarenessing, knowing itself as itself, just as awareness. And then as that awareness, so you've kind of have been aware of the spacious awareness, and now you're aware from the spacious awareness, which is a continuous field of awareness that's arising as aliveness within your body. So there's this feeling of spacious and pervasive, arising dance of consciousness that first feels like it's outside and in equally, and then there's a sense that it's also within everyone else and within you, and there's a feeling you've dropped from head to heart. And so there's this heart-mind online, which is open-hearted awareness, which is made of awareness. The ground is awareness, and it's meeting your humanness, and so there's a ground of being, which is the human being that's grounded in awareness, intelligence, and then the intelligence has this love or joy and bliss, and then from there you can create and relate. And you've kind of shifted systems from the first primary system of thought-based identity, and now you're in awareness, embodied, open-hearted identity. So you got that going.
That's what I wanted him to do. That was it. Listen, it's all fluid. The movement's fluid, and I love that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Was this fun? Was that fun? This was fun for me.
Me too.
Thank you so much. This is great.
Okay,
yeah, heart, applause, hug.
Great.
Great.
Thank you.
I'm good. All right, here we go. All right.